Hello everyone, Niklsun here, and welcome back to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. This is a show where we'll be breaking down all of the day's movie news and going over what it means for the production in general. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. First out the gate, we got to talk about this brand new photo that Zack Snyder tweeted out, I believe on Sunday night, either Sunday or Monday morning. Okay, so there is a lot to be gleaned from this. Now, I know a lot of people out there have been complaining, like, guys, it's just a picture. It's just these two guys sitting there, and maybe you can see something in the background. No, there's actually a lot more to this photo, and this is going to be more speculative than I think any other video has ever been, at least on my show. So I'm going to bring the photo up here, and we're going to dissect everything that at least I can see on here. And let me know what you guys think about all these little pieces. What do you think some of these costumes are? What do you think some of the other things in this shot are? But I'm going to bring the photo up, and I'm going to leave it up for a bit. So here we go. Okay, so this photo starts off, if you look, all right, so it's mainly just a picture of Zack Snyder and Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa is, in fact, the actor who is playing Aquaman. So as you can see, they are definitely redesigning the character of Aquaman. And we've already seen what he looks like in character with that picture that Zack tweeted out about a year ago, where it had the Unite the Seven. So if you look in the far left back of the picture, you can see the new version of the Flash. Now, there's not too much variation they can do from the one that we see on TV. The biggest difference that they can do is try to make it look a little bit higher end. They can make it look a little bit more durable, or perhaps they can make it seem a little bit more technologically advanced, I guess you could say. So this one does appear, just based on the shine alone that you can see from the lights, it does appear as though it's made out of metal. So it is going to be some sort of armor, or perhaps some other material that we haven't really been introduced to yet, but I'm pretty sure that this now confirms, based on the concept art that we've seen and now this photo, that the Flash costume is in fact going to be metal. And it does look like he has the lightning bolts coming off for the ears. There appears to be a little bit of gold around his belt. So, I mean, it looks like they're trying to keep a lot of those elements relatively familiar to what people are already used to with the movie, while also, or with the TV show, I should say, while also still trying to be fresh and unique. So this looks like it's a really cool take, but we're going to have to wait a little bit to see exactly what this suit's going to look like in high resolution. Right next to that picture, you can see it looks like it's a modified version of the Aquaman armor that we've already seen. Now, it looks like we saw, maybe that was his casual wear. We don't really know what the landscape of the Atlantean universe is going to look like. We don't know what their wardrobe is going to be on a day-to-day basis, whether or not they do just wear armor, or if what he was wearing was more of his casual wear that we saw in that picture. And this that you can see is in fact his battle armor, because that does resemble the mold of Jason Momoa, like just the face on the mannequin, the way that the facial hair is. It does look like it resembles Jason Momoa. So that most likely is Aquaman's armor. Now, this is where the biggest question mark comes from, is the black armor next to the Aquaman armor. Now, there's been a lot of speculation online. The two biggest points of speculation with this are that it is either Nightwing's armor, where you can see the kind of down arrow in the middle of the armor could potentially be painted blue, and give us the Nightwing armor. I personally don't think that that's true. There's also rumors that this could be the Green Lantern armor. That I'm leaning more towards that, just based on this. If I had to choose between the two, I would be leaning more towards Green Lantern, just because if you look on the first, what looks to be right below where the pecs would be, I guess you could say, there looks to be a section for a symbol, or that there is a symbol there. It's just the image is a little blurry. My main thought, though, and I hope that I'm wrong with this, but my main thought is that is actually the armor for Doomsday. Not Doomsday, Darkseid. And I hope that I am wrong, because that to me looks so generic. Other people have been saying it's another form of Batsuit, which I'm leaning more and more towards that being a possibility. The first thing that jumped out of my head was that it was in fact Darkseid, and I got a little bit upset. But going a little bit ahead, keeping with this picture here, if you look next to Jason Momoa on the table, you can see the bat cowl. And this looks like it's a more streamlined version than what we've already seen in Batman v Superman, because he has the two costumes in Batman v Superman. He's the armored one, and he has the standard leather one. which is still armored. But if you look where the ears go, the peak of them, or the material that actually goes up to make the ears, is a little bit more streamlined than what we've seen in Batman v Superman. That black costume back there may in fact be another uniform for Batman. Who knows at this point? It's very early on. We still really don't have any idea of what that is. It's really cool to get these kind of sneak peeks and glimpses. The one that has me the most perplexed, though, is what is going on behind the black suit. Because you can see a character, or at least what looks to be a costume, with some sort of bag over the front. I am speculating that is actually just shielding. That they are putting up something there to hide whatever is on that mannequin, because that is going to be something I think that is revealing, or spoilery perhaps. I really don't know. I still don't really know what that is. You also get to see in the bottom corner there, below where the Flash is, you get to see what appears to be concept art of Mira, who is supposedly going to be played by Amber Heard in Justice League, or in Aquaman. She's the wife of Aquaman and the Queen of Atlantis. So that would be really cool if that was her and that she was featured in Justice League, because there has been a rumor that Mira will in fact be in Justice League, and that's where she'll be first introduced, and then we'll get her in the Aquaman film later on in 2018. Another really cool thing, if you go above where the bat cowl is, you can see there appears to be some sort of Spartan armor helmet. I am pretty sure that is an Atlantean armor helmet. Now, there is a little bit of speculation online, and I'm tending to agree with this, just based on it being a modernized version of Ares' helmet. Now, whether or not that means that this is introducing, if that is Ares' helmet, that does not mean that Ares might be introduced in Justice League. This very well may be the workshop for the DC universe. Now, we know Aquaman, Flash, and Batman, Superman, all those characters are going to be appearing in Justice League. Zack Snyder is, in fact, directing it. Zack Snyder is also producing most of the other DC films. So there could be some elements on display here that are not necessarily for Justice League, that are for the other films. Because you can also see the body mold above the bat cowl there, which some people have suggested that it's Mira. I think that it's just another version of the Aquaman armor. And that boot, that's just a boot. I'm not going to speculate on that. But God, yeah, I mean, this was just such an interesting photo to be sent out, because at first glance, you think there's not a lot in it. And then you go, oh, wait, there's a Flash. And, oh, there's another look at Aquaman. And, oh, what's that black suit? What's going on there? What's going on there? This is just really interesting. It's giving the fans a little bit of information, a little nugget to kind of ease them over, to tide them over until Batman v Superman comes out. But it's done in such a subtle way that we really have to kind of work for it. And that makes it really engaging and exciting for fans, at least to me personally. I don't know how you guys felt about this, whether or not you thought it was just a picture, which I know a lot of people out there did, and no fault found with that. I mean, absolutely, some people look at this and say, you guys are going nuts over this. This is just a picture. But as fans, as people who have lived with these characters in our own imaginations and in our comic books and in our stories that we've read ever since we were children, these can mean more to us, and seeing them realized in live action means something to us. Now, whether or not it's quantifiable, or whether or not you can actually describe it, it's something for you. It's not necessarily for you to describe to other people, for them to experience through you. Everybody experiences it on their own. And this, to me, is very exciting, because I'm seeing a lot of my childhood heroes realized in real life, instead of just how they would be pictured in my own mind. This is how they would in fact exist in the real world through the eyes of Zack Snyder. So I am on board with this hook, line, and sinker. This, to me, is going to be, I think, a very unique approach, mainly because the whole difference, and I've mentioned this before, but the whole difference between Marvel and DC, at least at the onset of it, DC is about gods. It's about characters who are essentially gods. And then you have pretty much the one mortal. There's a few of them in there, but there's the one mortal in Batman who is, the richest, one of the smartest people on the face of the planet, surrounded by all these gods. And then you look at Marvel, and they are regular, ordinary people who are given godlike ability. And so that to me has always been the juxtaposition between the two. And looking at this and just, seeing the sheer size of Jason Momoa as Aquaman, he's going to be a force unto himself. I'm very excited for this movie. The way that it's coming together, the fact that, and I didn't even address this yet, the fact that, and I mentioned this on the show that I did last week, but the fact that they're coming out and saying, oh, Warner Brothers is nervous, and they have the right to be nervous. This is, I think, with marketing, this is a $450 million film. They have the right to be nervous, which means they have to clear almost $1 billion just to break even. But the fact that they've come out and said that, oh, well, I wouldn't be surprised if Zack Snyder wasn't directing Justice League. And looking at the fact that he is still involved heavily in the pre-production, the fact that they've already guaranteed, or at least greenlit the start of production, which is going to be April 11th, which is 2 weeks removed from Batman v Superman. I mean, if they've come out and said that filming is going to start on this day, and we're in a different age now. I mean, there have been people out there who have been saying, well, yeah, look at that Superman movie that Nicolas Cage was a part of. They pulled the plug on that 3 weeks before they were going to start filming. And George Miller's Justice League movie that was going to be done in 2008 or 2009, they pulled the plug on that shortly before it was going to start filming. We live in a different age now. We live, especially far removed from the Tim Burton, Nicolas Cage Superman movie, but when you look at what happened with George Miller's Justice League, it was, the superhero landscape was different. Audiences weren't as receptive as they are now to ideas of characters like this, the bombasticness, I guess you could say, of these films. But on top of that, too, the digital age that we live in, the fact that information is spreading so far, if Warner Brothers was to come out and say, we're delaying this movie, that might actually negatively affect any version of this film that comes out. There is a possibility, because there's so many people anticipating this movie. I think that Warner Brothers has had enough time to get this right. And if they don't get this right, they need to replace everybody who is involved in the creative process in this movie, or in these series of films, because they've had so much time. If they don't get it right, then they're never going to get it right. And they need to get a new creative team in there, a new creative process in there to bring this world to life. That being said, I do not believe that to be true for 1 second. I do not believe that these people are the wrong people to be in charge of it. I loved Man of Steel. There were elements of it that I found were wrong. To give you an example, the problem with the problem with the death of Jonathan Kent was not the fact that he made him, wait. He said, "Hold on, don't do it." Don't reveal yourself. And then he gets swept up by the tornado. That wasn't the problem that I had with it. The problem that I had with it is that the physics of that sequence, when the tornado actually took him over, he wasn't moving. He would have been picked up and thrown away. Like, we didn't even see that. That was the problem that I had, was the actual realistic aspect of that sequence. The fact that he gave up his life to protect his son and to understand the world that we live in now, and the fact that if he had revealed himself, yeah, he might have been saved. His life might have been saved, but he's now going to be under scrutiny for the rest of his life, and his son is now going to be a pariah, essentially. So I understood the reasoning behind it, but it was the visual aspect of it that I didn't like. Other than that, for the most part, I loved that movie. And the fact that we're going ahead with this film, I'm more excited now than ever. I mentioned that on last week's episode, but I'm more excited now than ever about Batman v Superman, simply because of that last trailer. And this, looking at what they're doing with Justice League and the fact that Zack Snyder and the same creative team are involved in this, I have very high hopes for this. I think they're going to knock it out of the park, and we're really going to get an idea of what's in store for Justice League when Batman v Superman comes out, only because, now it hasn't been confirmed yet, but the end credit sequence of Batman v Superman is supposed to be very similar to the opening credit sequence of Watchmen, where we're actually going to see the Justice League actually, fighting together in kind of I guess you'd call it like a motion poster way, where it's almost a still frame, but the camera is still moving throughout it, and you're going to see Batman fighting somebody. You're going to see, possibly Aquaman and Flash fighting together, and Cyborg maybe going up against somebody. Like, there's a lot of really cool possibilities, and we'll really get a sense of where they're going with this and what the visual aspect of it might be come March 25th. But until then, I'll definitely keep you guys updated. While I was on my hiatus, there were several trailers that came out. Now, I'm waiting until the majority of those other trailers come out to talk about those specific films, because there are going to be follow-up trailers that come out, like X-Men and movies like that. But one that's really been racking my brain a lot has been the Star Trek Beyond trailer. Now, it was just a teaser trailer. It really just was getting us introduced to the world that this movie is going to be inhabiting. And I am on two sides of this movie. I've had arguments on both sides of this. So here's side one. I really liked the trailer. Okay? I really liked the whimsical aspect of it, the fun aspect of it, the fact that it's going to be an action-oriented film, which is something I think that has been missing from at least the last one. The last one was a little bit more heady as opposed to it being an action. The action was still cool, but it almost took a back seat to the philosophies of the characters. And one thing that the director and screenwriter have talked about, the screenwriter on this new film, by the way, is Simon Pegg. He's one of them, at least. And the director, Justin Lin, who did the last 4 Fast and Furious movies, well, the 3, 4, 5, and 6, they have talked about how this is still going to be a Star Trek film, but there are aspects of this trailer that I really liked. I really liked the fast-paced action. The sequence at the very end where, she shoves the guy off that platform, and as she's jumping and Kirk is being teleported, he grabs a hold of her and they get teleported together. I thought that was a really cool sequence. The camaraderie, the moment between Bones and between Spock, where, Spock says, he's like, or Bones goes, he's like, well, at least I won't have to die alone. And then Spock gets teleported. He goes, oh, well, that's just great. Or that's just typical. I thought that was a really cool moment. The fact that Spock says one of his classic lines, which is, we will find hope in the impossible. That is such an old school Spock line to say. There are a lot of the new species in it. The fact that this is one quote here from the producer, so I'll just read this out before I get into the other side of this argument. The producers have said these aliens will use brute force and sheer numbers to defeat their enemies. This is exactly what they said. It's a real post 9/11 view of conflict. The little guy can take down the more advanced big guy by attacking in ways that are both surprising and overwhelming. Yes, the Enterprise could blow up any one of those ships, but there are 40,000 of them ramming into the hull. Yes, we can take out terrorists with drone strikes, but there are always hundreds more out there. So they are using a different philosophy, and even the villain in the movie, a Krall, I believe his name is, who is played by Idris Elba, is a new species, and they are going against the philosophies of the Federation. The fact that they are going out there, the Federation is going out there to introduce their lifestyle to all these other planets and hoping that they will be receptive of that. And this is going to be one of the first alien groups that we see that is really resentful against this. So there's a lot of cool aspects with that, about how we're seeing a new villain, a completely new species, and the fact that they're using sheer brute force as opposed to intelligence, or as opposed to a cunning villain. This guy is just going to be menacing. This guy is just going to be basically like a terrorist, and going up against the Federation in a philosophical and physical way. So there's a lot of really cool aspects to that. Now here's the other side of that coin. This does not look like a Star Trek film. That is the biggest issue that I had with this trailer. When I first watched it, I think I tweeted it like, what the hell did I just watch? Because to me, it wasn't coherent. You have the Beastie Boys song, which I think that was poorly chosen song, even though they said that the song does feature into the film. That's fine. It featured into the first film, into Star Trek from 2009. The fact that we had the motorcycle. Why is there a motorcycle on an alien planet? There's so many things in the trailer that to me didn't scream Star Trek. But then, like 2 days after the trailer came out, Justin Lin, the director, came out and said he was pissed that they included that sequence in the trailer. Like, I think this was when asked if he was making Fast and Furious in space, because that's essentially what a lot of people got from it. He goes, yeah, I don't know if that's the case here. When I saw the teaser, I'm like, oh shit, you really have to put the motorcycle in there? So I get it. He was, I think, really upset at that, because they're going for a Guardians of the Galaxy tone with this. And that's fine. Make it a little bit more fun. Make it a little bit more lighthearted. Make the action a little bit more present, while still keeping that philosophical aspect to it. Just don't do what they did in Star Trek Into Darkness, which I liked. I did enjoy that film. I just felt that it was uneven. It didn't feel like they knew what kind of film they were trying to make, whether it was going to be this more philosophical film or whether it was going to be more of an action film. And to me, they just didn't succeed on either. And they didn't fail, but they didn't succeed. And then looking at this, this was just trying to remind people that Star Trek can be fun. Because it can be. I mean, you look at any of the old TV shows, you look at the original series. Like the Star Trek, the original series, was a fun show. You look at Star Trek The Next Generation. While it had its fun moments, it was more of a philosophical show. You know, then you look at Star Trek Deep Space Nine, more philosophical. You look at Star Trek Voyager, more fun. So, I mean, they've got these different aspects of Star Trek that they really can develop in these films. I just feel that this trailer misrepresented what this movie is going to be. I think this is going to be a good Star Trek movie. This trailer did not sell me on the fact that I'm going to be watching a Star Trek film. That was my biggest disappointment. Now, if you guys disagree with me, absolutely, put a comment in the comment section. Let me know, because I want to see other sides of this coin. I want to see how other people are interpreting this, whether or not you're excited, whether or not you're trepidatious about this film. Do you think that it's, you know, are they just trying to capitalize on the fact that it's going to be the 50th anniversary? Or do you think that they've actually put forth a worthwhile film? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And if we do get more information about this topic, then I will definitely update you guys on here. Just this morning, it was officially announced that Legendary Pictures has secured Stephen S. DeKnight as the director of the upcoming Pacific Rim 2. So he's taking over directing duties from Guillermo del Toro, who I think we always kind of assumed that he was not going to be returning for this film just because of his huge slate of films that he's got coming out. Like he's just signed on to Fantastic Voyage. He's got like in the Mountains of Madness that he's been working on for like a decade. There's lots of films that he's currently involved in. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I think, is another one that he's working on. So there's a lot of projects that he's been attached to, his Frankenstein movies. There's lots of stuff that he's been attached to. And so I never thought that he was going to direct it. And also, the one downside, I guess you could say, about Guillermo del Toro is that whenever he tries to do a follow-up to a movie, his idea is bigger. That might not always be the way to go, especially when you look at Pacific Rim. It wouldn't be coherent if it went bigger. I think if you go a little bit bolder, maybe do similar things that you did in the first one, but just enhance them, alter them a little bit, maybe do a little bit more of it, but not go bigger. Don't make the machines even bigger, because we are, like, especially when you got into the water, we lost the scale. I actually thought that it was just a guy in a suit fighting. When they were in the city, when they were fighting around boats and stuff, or in around buildings, you could really tell that these things were, 300-400 feet tall. And so that's where I feel that they need to go with this. Now, with announcing Stephen S. DeKnight, who was the showrunner and creator of Spartacus, which is a great show if you guys haven't watched it, get through the first 2 or 3 episodes because you will love it after that. I remember watching it and going, good Lord, this is a pile of garbage. But you get through like the first 2 or 3 episodes and holy crap, does that show get excellent. And then unfortunately, the main star passed away and they had to recast. But they did such an excellent job with that show, with captivating you with the excessive violence and sex and nudity and all that kind of stuff and language, but with these characters as well that you wanted to follow them. Like if you lived there, you would follow Spartacus and you would want to be a friend of Crixus, and it was just such a great show, and he was a huge part of that. And then coming on to Daredevil season 1. After taking over for Drew Goddard, who had to step down at the time for reasons that ended up falling apart, he did an amazing job. And then he announced that he was not coming back for season 2, and we were all kind of wondering why. And part of it was because, he was attached to the Transformers writing room. He was one of the writers. I think the 8 or 10 or 12 writers that they got involved in that, he was one of them. For like a 3-week period, they went and they just brainstormed ideas for future Transformers films. And a lot of people thought he might get one of those. But now it looks like he's actually getting Pacific Rim 2. Now, there's no real story details out there. There have been a couple of hints out there that Guillermo del Toro has said that he wants to focus on. Specifically that, Charlie Day's character, I can't remember his name. He was the guy with all the tattoos and the guy who was hanging around with Ron Perlman's character, that he may in fact be some kind of villainous character in the film. I hope that's not the case, mainly because I can't buy Charlie Day as a villain. I just can't. To me, he hasn't shown me that acting prowess where I can actually buy him as a villain. I wouldn't be able to take him seriously. I wouldn't find him intimidating, and these are some of the aspects of a villain that they need to be able to portray. So I hope that's not the case. I hope that maybe he might actually be the cause again, which I think that would be really funny, and that plays into the type of character that I know that he could play. So there's a lot of aspects they could go down that route, as long as they get Charlie Hunnam back. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, but unfortunately, they can't get Idris Elba back. But that is where they need to focus with the film. Because one of the issues that I had, pretty much the only issue that I had with Pacific Rim, was there was a chunk in the middle of the movie, maybe like a half an hour chunk after the opening battle sequence, right up until they actually go out and have to fight the two kaijus in the middle of the film. There was a point where I was really bored, mainly because they were trying to develop characters and they just did not write compelling characters. So hopefully that's something they can rectify. And having Stephen DeKnight on board, I think he can definitely do that. He can elicit character development, especially in an ensemble system, where this is really going to be, I think, an ensemble film, more so than the first one was. The first one was really more about Raleigh's character than it was an ensemble. I think this next one should hopefully stick more to an ensemble. But one of the biggest elements of this too is that, and this happened a couple of months ago, that the Wanda Group from China, I believe, is the company that purchased Legendary Pictures. Legendary Pictures was the company responsible for bringing us Pacific Rim. And Pacific Rim actually didn't do all that well domestically, but it did 75, almost 80% of its total box office overseas, and over 100 million in China. Like, to put that in perspective, I think the Star Wars has made like 160 million in China, and Pacific Rim made 100. So I mean, there's a huge demand for movies like this in other areas of the world. So hopefully they can play up some of those other aspects and not necessarily focus on making this movie a hit in North America. Because as the last movie showed, 3/4 of the money that they made were not made in North America. So don't make the movie for that audience. Make the movie for a worldwide audience. If they do that, they can embrace some of the more fantastical elements that the first movie really showed, but had to be a little bit more restrained because North American audiences would not accept it as willingly. There are sections of people here, absolutely, who would, genre fans, comic book fans, stuff like that. They would more or less embrace it, but the general movie-going audience wouldn't. Other areas around the world are a little bit more open to stuff like that. So having this news come out that they're going to be produced by an international conglomerate means that there's probably going to be a little bit more focus on the international market. That really makes me feel good about this film. The only downside that I can see right now is that they're not going to make their already scheduled release date of August of 2017. Right now it's scheduled for, I think, August 4th of 2017. Unless they get into production now, they're not meeting that deadline. So they're going to have to push it. It'll probably be a summer 2018. Well, actually, we're now starting to see that movies are moving away from the summer. I mean, Blade Runner 2 was announced for January of 2018. There's a lot of movies that are moving away from the summer movie season, and I think it's about time because they're getting too crammed. There's too many of them coming out. I would personally think that it's not about the time of year that you release a movie, it's about the quality. And if you put out a movie, one of the things you need to do, especially if a movie's releasing in like January or February or even September or October, you need to have early screenings. You need to have screenings like 2-3 weeks out in advance. You need to get early word starting quickly and keep that perpetuating. Have a screening every 3 days. Have more and more people talking about it, saying like, this movie is excellent. This movie is so much fun. This movie's this movie's that. This movie's great. If you perpetuate that, you get more and more and more people excited for it, regardless of what time it comes out in the year. I mean, I had this argument 8 months ago, 10 months ago, where I talked about, movies releasing in January and how there's a stigma about it. The only time you ever have to worry about that is if the movie's already filmed and then they move it. If they move it before the movie is filmed, why would a studio invest hundreds of millions of dollars in a film they know is going to be garbage? Like, why would they do that? Why would they invest even $1 million in that they know they're likely going to lose? That's just stupid. That's somebody saying, I don't want my job anymore, but I can't, work up the courage to go in and say, I quit and I want to be fired. And so I'm going to just, derail this right into the ground. No, it doesn't make sense to do that. So I have a feeling this movie may even be pushed back to a winter 2018, maybe even later on in 2018, maybe like August, September. Maybe they'll do a July. Who who knows? I mean, we're going to have to wait a little bit. I think we're probably going to get news about this sometime late spring, probably in May, maybe early June. That's when we're going to start really hearing about the wheels moving on this project. Because now that they've got the green light, or now that they at least have a director on board, they can really start this momentum going. So I have a lot of high hopes for this. I think that this movie could, in fact, be really fun. At the end of the day, that's really what I look for in a movie. I look for it to be entertaining. If a movie's coming out and saying it's a biopic about this person, I go there to be invested in the character and see the trials and tribulations that this person had to go through in order to get to the goal that they had set. When you watch a movie like this, I want to go and see robots beating the shit out of giant monsters. You know, with maybe a little bit of character development. If they're not going to be solid action sequences every 15 to 20 minutes, give me some characters to care about in the interim. You know, as long as you do that, then I'm on board. So hopefully we're going to hear some more information about this movie sometime in late spring. So when we do hear more information about this, then I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click that subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever a new video is posted. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And also give our Facebook fan page a like at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. If you ever have a topic or a question you'd like to have talked about on the show, go ahead and put a comment in the comment section. And as soon as I get enough to actually do a full episode, then I will definitely comment on all of those. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.